Welcome.
Accessing files.
Downloading.
3,
2.
1.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is going to be the Moon Knight review and thoughts for episode 1 and 2, podcast style.
Episode 1 was really just the introduction to the character of Stephen Grant. It wasn't necessarily a Mark Specter story, or not even Khonshu and Moon Knight. We just see the everyday life that Stephen Grant goes through, his interactions, his job, his life, everything. But we can see that he has these fractures, and that's what I'm going to be calling it, these fractures in his timeline, because he jumps in and out of, different personas. And up until this point in episode 1, he doesn't realize that he has this dissociative identity disorder. He thinks that he's chaining himself to the bed and taping down the door because he has a sleepwalking disorder. However, whenever he snaps out of the Stephen Grant persona and goes into the Mark Specter, he has no recollection, and he just goes off and does whatever adventures Mark Specter does. So it's kind of like an unreliable narrative story, because we don't get a chance to see the entire picture. We're only seeing it as of right now from Stephen Grant, which, like we both said, I think was a perfect way that they intertwine that into the script, directing style, everything, because it just leaves us with so many questions as he flips in and out of personas.
Boom. Episode 2.
Now, episode 2 is where all the haters leave the chat, because my boy, Mr. Knight, pulls up. I know we had questions about how it would look if Stephen Grant pulled up with the powers of Khonshu, and we saw right then and there. In this episode, we saw he had a chance to actually battle the inner demons within himself that was Mark Specter, and not wanting to give him full control of his body so that he can keep track of, what he does is in his day-to-day life. And in doing so, he got a chance to suit up, but he realizes when he needs to get the job done, Mark Specter is the only guy who is suited for the job.
Perfect. I think those are two easy ways to sum it up. I think that was fantastic. Now, my next question for you is definitely going to be, were those two episodes interesting to you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Especially more so episode 2, obviously, just because I'm a huge fan of anytime they have a new, per se, introduction to a character, and seeing Stephen Grant's Moon Knight was just so badass. But even in episode 1, like, the fracturing of his persona is just so visually appealing, because in the instance when he was in the downtown area of that one little village, and they were doing, like, all of them were trying to tackle him so they could get the scarab, he literally just, like, blacks out, comes back to, and there's bodies surrounding him, blood all over him. He wakes up and he's like, what the hell just happened? Little did he know, he just flipped the switch, whipped everybody's ass, and then turned the switch back off. So, I mean, I said it once and I'll say it again. #1 Disney Plus show.
There's the plug. No, I love it. Now, in episode 1 and episode 2, I think in terms of the plot, they had two big climaxes. I think in episode 1, you had the climax of when Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur Harrow, comes through in the museum, and we first see the jackal, and he's hiding right before they do the bathroom scene. And then in episode 2, you have that high intensity sequence again with another jackal, but at this time he's a little more prepared, knows what to expect. And you have that whole thing of Layla saying, put on the suit. He jumps out, boom, he hits his head, bam, that whole thing you talked about in episode 2 turns into Mr. Knight. He has his version of the Moon Knight suit on. What did you think of each of those two climaxes? Did they hit? Were they misses? Caliente, frio? What did it feel like?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the climax of episode 1 wasn't the jackal. For me, the
Okay.
climax was when he picks up the phone and his wife that we know now says, "Where have you been, Mark?" Because that right there is the point where
Interesting.
Stephen Grant is now realizing that there's another persona. You know, this entire time he's just thinking he's blacking out. He's not knowing what the
Hmm.
fuck is going on.
Hmm.
And hearing that voice say, I thought you were dead, Mark, blah, blah, blah. Now he's starting to get like a realization of, okay, maybe this is deeper than I imagined. Yes, the way he suited up was badass, but we already seen that in the trailer. That was just
Hmm.
like that was a hook. Episode 2, climax obviously was the ending when he pulled up in that new suit and then they got that transition scene. But both of them for me hit because they just show so much character development from the Stephen Grant perspective,
Hmm. Hmm.
Like Mark Specter, we haven't really seen him too much on screen, but we already know that man is a beast. With or
Right.
without the Moon Knight suit,
Right.
he knows what he's doing. He doesn't have much character progression as much as Stephen Grant has.
Yet.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And we'll circle back to that. But I'm curious as what you would think in terms of were episode 1 and 2 thought provoking? And the reason why I ask you that is go back to WandaVision, right? WandaVision, there was a lot of mystery. You had to think what's going on with the relationship with Vision, Sword. It's new. It's the first thing we got, during the quarantine. Like that's the first Marvel content that we really got our to sink our teeth in. And then you have a Loki, wasn't very heavy in terms of the combat or your traditional type of superhero show or whatever we want to call it now, right? Because Disney Plus is the new norm. But those shows kind of made you think a little bit more. Like, did you feel anything similar to that through episode 1 and 2 of Moon Knight?
More so in episode 1, but it's the twists and turns haven't come yet. I know there's going to be something crazy coming, but like in episode 1 and 2, I remember it wasn't even until like I think it was episode 4 of WandaVision when we got the whole backstory of what the hell is Westview and why it's sitcom related and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't until that episode that I was like, damn, everything's starting to click.
Yeah.
For Moon Knight, everything's already kind of clicking from the start. However, because of the split personality thing, and now that we know, spoilers if you haven't seen episode 2, which if you're listening to this video 10 minutes in, what are you doing, bro? But Arthur Harrow literally said that he was Moon Knight. He used to be the predecessor to Mark Spector.
Mm-hmm.
So now, who even knows if Moon Knight as Arthur Harrow went on and did some really bad shit, and now those guys could potentially similarly to like in Hawkeye, how he did the tracksuit mafia gang, and they were all like, "Oh, we need to take out Ronin," blah blah blah.
Right.
Whoever Arthur Harrow was when he was Moon Knight, if he went out and did those kind of things, those guys now, if they still have organizations and gangs and whatever, they could see Moon Knight as a huge threat and want to take him out themselves because of the events that he did. So you never know. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and especially when it comes down to the mythical lore behind it with the Egyptian gods. I already know they're gonna go crazy when it comes to that.
Right. So taking all those things and what you just said of what could come, again, for people who have made it this far in the video, if you haven't watched episode 2, then yeah, why are you here? But to those who got done watching those, who have seen the things that we just described in terms of really what are they about, what do you think the overall goal of these first 2 episodes are? And that might sound silly if you're listening, you're like, it's a freaking superhero show. Like, why does that even matter? Because these shows are more than just let me blow some stuff up. Like, it's not a Michael Bay movie. Like, it's not Transformers where there's explosions everywhere and it's a chase and it's a fight and it's this and that. Like, there's some deeper things that they kind of show, especially with the dissociative identity disorder that he has. Like, if I had to say, like, you're the showrunner, right? Whoever the name is, I'll look it up. It's escaping me. What would be your goal for someone who's a hardcore fan? And what would be your goal of this for someone who's new to Moon Knight, which had a pretty good amount of hype?
I think, at least what I'm taking it, being a big fan that I am and knowing a little bit more than just a casual viewer, at least the first 2 episodes is just getting introduced to Stephen Grant. Stephen Grant is going to be the forefront of this story, to the point that, like, we almost want to feel more connected to him as an audience because we can relate, right? Not all of us watching are going to be some fucking badass mercenary who could just tear up the scene with or without Khonshu, right? But now if we could see Stephen Grant being like the dweeby guy that he is, not knowing that he has this dissociative identity disorder, not knowing how to, go on dates with these people, and just, his character as a whole seems more relatable. So what I feel is the writers and showrunners, whatever, they want us to put a lot of focus on him as a character, really develop him out and flesh him out, and then have him, do some crazy ass shit and use his techniques to really solve the problems. Because as of right now, it's kind of like Bruce Banner Hulk perspective, where anytime Bruce needed help, the Hulk would come out, do work, and then go back to sleep. Now, Mark Specter seems like the answer to everything. Let's see how Stephen Grant could solve these problems.
That's a good point. Do you like how they're portraying the Stephen Grant and the let's focus on Moon Knight first, and we'll jump into Arthur Harrow. We'll touch on some of the other characters, but first, I just want to stick around Moon Knight because I think it's important that we touch on how, what the hell is his name? Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
How he's doing, because I mean, personally, I think this is like award-winning stuff that he's doing in the first 2 episodes.
100%, bro. Like, in the first episode, when Stephen Grant is panicking and he's like, what the hell's going on? Am I hallucinating? You could really see that he's like, he cannot truly understand and comprehend what is actually reality versus what isn't. He wakes up from these dreams where he was like killing people off in, the cornfields, and doesn't know that he actually did that shit. So he doesn't know. He can't tell. So when he's panicking and then he looks in the mirror and you get a very serious, calm and collected Oscar Isaac as Mark Spector, he says, you need to calm down. I'm going to take care of this. There's a guy coming. If you don't let me take over, we're dead. Let me do this.
I felt that.
Boom. Dude, yeah, same.
I felt that in there. Like, dude, I was sweating. Like, my shirt was soaked. My hands were soaked. I swear there was just sweat like dripping down my face. And I was like, yo, you got to go and switch. Because if you don't, it's game over for you.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think the thing about Mark Spector is he has his confidence and he knows. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, as soon as he turned it up, that Jackal was trying to escape his ass.
Yeah.
Jack was like, I want nothing to do with this.
Yep.
So, that's kind of like the easy way out. Obviously, he's going to have his badass moments, and we're going to get, comic book accurate Moon Knight where he does not give a shit who sees him, who's coming. He's going to take their ass out.
Yep.
But like I said earlier, if they could flesh out, how Stephen Grant's perspective comes in to play and really just delivers. Like I said, bro, this show, it's teeing up really well, man. And if, like you said, I think they're all the people are, having great performances, regardless of their character.
Before we move into Ethan Hawke's character, this I have a question for you on Moon Knight and Stephen Grant, Mark Spector. Between the two of those, which one do you think would enhance the Moon Knight character if they were the focal point? Right? Let's give it a percentage. Right now, it's probably what, 70-30? No, 80-20, maybe even 90-10 in favor of Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think should kind of have that higher ratio? Who should we see more moving forward in the next remaining 4 episodes, and then, you know, whatever we see Moon Knight in the future? Who's going to enhance the character to make it must see, Robert Downey style? I have to go see because Oscar Isaac and Moon Knight are in this movie. I'm going to see it.
I got to stick with Stephen Grant, bro. I mean, this next episode that we're going to see, episode 3, looks like it's going to be more based on the character of Mark Spector, right? He was in charge. He even covered the mirror so that Stephen Grant couldn't talk to him through there. And he's going to basically lead the way for that episode. However, he's already got his shit together. You know, unless I could find out, I could see a backstory or something about his weakness. Maybe it's his wife. Maybe that's why they're going to divorce, because he wants her to, you know, stay out of the danger and shit. Right. So I need to see how somebody, the villain, Ethan Hawke, how they can break a character like Mark Spector. We've already seen how easy it is to break Stephen Grant. So let me see how they can break Mark Spector, and then we can start to play with, you know, who is the better side of the coin.
Do you want that to be a little more complex, or do you think that's going to be kind of a stereotypical you for this, right? Let's just assume that you go after Layla, you get Mark. Would you rather see it be more complex than that, or do you think that that's kind of fitting for Mark's character? Does that sit well with you?
I'd prefer for it to be a little deeper. In all honesty, like, let's say you go after Layla, Steven comes after you because he's like, here's this innocent girl who was trying to help me, even though I'm literally mentally insane. And she was giving me the benefit of the doubt, helped me out, came through. And now I feel like I owe her one. I'm going to come in and save her myself as Stephen Grant, not Mark Spector. In terms of Mark, what I really want to see with him is because let's be real, Mark Spector is the prime persona, right? It was him first, right. Then it grew. I want to know at what point in his history, what traumatic event happened, or what made him split off into a second persona. If you can show me that backstory and, you know, the turning point in his head where he was like, because if you like, so a dissociative identity disorder is really the brain cannot comprehend what is happening with trauma or whatever the case may be, that instead of dealing with the pain, it actually makes it easier on a coping mechanism for you to just switch into a persona and forget about everything, all the baggage and everything that you just went through. Yeah. So if I could see that portion of Mark Spector and what caused him to break into another persona, bro, it's game over.
I like that. We'll touch on potential theories in terms of when that split occurred, but I want to switch gears and just talk about Ethan Hawke's character, Arthur Harrow, for a second. Do you like what they're doing with his character through the first 2?
I'm gonna tell you this. Never have I ever seen an intro where I'm like terrified of some person. My boy took a sip of water, no problem. Does the little ring on there, whatever, some trippy shit. Breaks that, puts it in his shoes, and walks out. Like, this dude clearly is on some, like, what is it called? He's definitely got a god complex, right?
Agree. Agree.
There's nothing worse than having a god complex, but actually having godlike powers. My man could literally suck the life out of you, bro. And he has followers who are willing to sacrifice their life, right? Like, so he's got to be feeding them something good for them to be like, hey, I'm going to follow this guy with the potential that he's going to kill me for something that's in the future.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's not even going to give me the chance to rewrite my destiny to become a better person or blah, 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 to be judged fairly. If I make a mistake 10 years from now and I don't even know what that mistake is, I'm done.
Done.
So he's got to be, some kind of like messiah to all of his followers. And I'm all for it, bro, because he's killing the role. He really is.
But how do you think he deviates from that kind of like messiah, godlike role? Because I typically don't like those types of characters, like the culty kind of characters myself. Even go back to like Hydra, like everyone's like, Hail Hydra, Hail Hydra, whatever. I'm just like, all right. I mean, we got it, but okay, you guys are just gonna get beat down by Cap, and let's just move on to the next thing. Like, well, you're not going anywhere. For this, I feel like it's such an unknown, and I think he has potential to be an Earth-based threat, not a local, but he has Earth-based damaging powers, in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like literal Egyptian gods.
Mm-hmm.
And what he wants to do is essentially set Amit free. Or Amit, or whatever. Amit, I think it is. He wants to
Amit?
set Amit. Yeah, Amit. What the fuck am I saying? He wants to set Amit free because he believes that the way Khonshu does it and all these other ways, like for instance, take Captain America, even.
Mm-hmm.
He said, anytime somebody tries to win a war before it starts, innocent people die.
Ooh.
Tony Stark wanted a shield around the world to protect us before we even need protecting. So Amit, if he is the savior and is going to rid the world of these evildoers, then Ethan Hawke is just the conduit to that mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And when you have your mindset on something like that drastic, he feels that he's technically saving the world.
Yep. He believes it. And those are
Right.
dangerous types of people. Interesting. I like that. So direction. Moving episode 2 and episode 3, we have our two main characters. Do you like the direction side by side that this story is moving and kind of where you foresee it going?
Yes, 100%. Especially now that there is communication between the two personas. Because I think moving forward,
that's key.
Stephen Grant will know that he is not in control of his body, and same thing goes for Mark Specter. Now that they can communicate and they are conscious of each other's separate personas, they'll be able to work together. The same way when he was suited up, he was, he landed that strong ass right hook on the Jackal. Mark Specter was like, "Hey, that was a good ass hit, but you can't do this on your own. Let me do this. Let me do this." So that constant communication between each other is going to be key moving forward because each of them will help each other solve each other's problems.
But what does Steven bring to the table though, in terms of like abilities? From what you've seen, like, is there anything that they've shown you that you're like, oh, that could be helpful, that could be helpful, that could be helpful?
I think when it comes down to the abilities, it's not necessarily what he has to bring to the table. It's his knowledge. My boy is booked up, bro. This dude has been reading, and he's reading about this mythological lure. So he could know their weaknesses. He can know different tactics, different rituals, whatever the case may be. Mark Specter, he's a straight brute, badass mercenary, but he might not have the same knowledge when it comes to this aspect of, the Egyptian gods that Stephen Grant has.
Do you think that that's going to help him? Because one thing that I personally saw right when we saw Mr. Knight, knowing who Mr. Knight is in the comics, and listen, for those of you listening, if you have not realized by now that the MCU does not care what the comic books say, then newsflash, they don't care what the comic books say. They use it as kind of a guide, right, for characters. But for the most part, they pretty much have remade every single character, and the MCU is its own pocket universe. That's just the way it is.
Right.
But Mr. Knight was where that Batman comparison came in. The world's greatest detective. Like, he's someone who's going to sit down, observe, look, find out, gather all the clues, and then you have the Mark Specter Moon Knight, who's just going to beat your face in. Doesn't matter. If you're a bad guy, you're done. Right? Can you see Steven falling into that world's greatest detective role, or no?
Yeah, for sure, because he has his research, bro. The number one thing with becoming a detective is your research and understanding like clues, right? So for instance, maybe not in this season, but let's say season 2. He remembers something that he read off of a book about certain psychopathic tendencies and certain bullshit that somebody can do that can help progress him becoming a better detective, because he's already done the research and he knows how to look out for those things, right? Like part of the problem that that Batman had in the Batman movie that we saw was he was a little arrogant when he came down to it. He thought he knew the answers 100% and didn't question it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like Mark Spector would be. However,
Yes.
Stephen Grant is going to hit you with the straight up facts.
Yes.
And
Okay, I'll ask you this at the end, but keep that in your back pocket though, because I think that has the makings of someone who's extremely OP. So I got to figure that there's going to be some sort. I can be cynical. There's got to be a downfall. But before we get to that, knowing that Steven and Mark are acquainted now, they know each other. That happened in the second episode, right? Everything we've told you guys is from the second episode. Do you think that pacing of this, when it's a complete 6-episode event, do you think the pacing and the speed of that and the reveal of these things is happening too soon? Or do you feel like it was good pacing, it was complex enough, or do you think it was just kind of like rushed and pushed forward?
with the pacing, man, I think it was perfect timing in my eyes. We have six episodes. That gives us a little under 6 hours of content. Probably like almost more like 5 hours and 15 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
If you think about the finale, especially for this show, considering the lore and who the character of Moon Knight is, there's going to be like a final badass battle, right? So episode 6 is basically a wash. You already know it's just going to be this complete third act Avengers Endgame style. They're going to go crazy. They're going to fight. They're going to do whatever they got to do. So that gives you episode 3, 4, and 5. There's got to be a twist in there. Twist is going to come either in episode 4 or 5. So that doesn't give you much room to work with in terms of progressing the story and the character development and allowing us to see, this character's interactions. So we also still don't even have the origin.
True.
Of, you know what I'm saying? So that's a whole, probably half an episode in and of itself right there. So if you think about that, yes, you'd say, if you look at it from the outside in, oh, wow, you already know everything you need to know in episode 2. You really don't, though, because we don't have an origin episode. We don't have the finale yet. And there's only so much you can do within those 6 hours. So,
do you think that's comparable to anyone else's origin story, though? I mean, who else? Again, Disney Plus is still new, that we haven't really had too many examples of this 6 to 8 episode kind of origin show, right? Every person that we've seen pretty much up to this point has been referenced, or we've seen them in some capacity, unless there's someone I'm missing that you can think of.
no, I mean, like, really, you have the only new people we've met where all the characters are Shang-Chi and the Eternals, and they had their own movie. But in the
Right.
beginning of, so you have a movie with Shang-Chi where in the beginning he's just a regular fighter trying to do his own thing. By the end of it, my man possesses the powers of the 10 rings.
Mm.
So, and you're talking about a 2-hour time block. That's not even 6 hours. So I think for the 6 hours that we have, the pacing and everything on par.
Okay. So let me dive a little bit deeper into the show itself. Right. 6 hours, 6 episodes. Of these 3 things, right? I'm going to throw them at you. We're going to do kind of like a rapid fire segment here. I'm going to hit you with the score, the music. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Is it fitting?
10 out of 10, bro. I told you,
Yes.
Scott Mescudi wouldn't be here without him. You throw day and night, I'm game.
I love that. I love that. I agree. I think everything's fitting. And I think what hit for me was the end credits of episode 2. When like it just everything fit. Like there's one thing that Marvel Studios is really good at, in my opinion. If you haven't caught this, I was just talking to my sister about it last night. But like the Black Panther soundtrack is exclusive to that. Shang-Chi is
God.
exclusive to its own. Like these are all like, when was the last time you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go through and download the entire soundtrack to a superhero movie? And it's custom music
Never.
based on that? Like never.
I
So
mean,
just
I'm not gonna lie. I jammed out to Something in the Way from the Batman like way too many
Mhm.
times. But that's it. It's a one song and it's over. One hit wonder.
Yep.
Bro, these soundtracks are like, and the craziest thing about these soundtracks is you hear the song and it like immerses you back into that moment of the episode where you're like, dude, when the bass drops, this dude gets uppercut in the mouth.
Yep.
It's game on.
Yep. No, that's exactly what I was going to say. The looks, and it takes me back to what I see in these shows on Disney Plus. Or again, they're movies. So I'll say the cinematography. Like, do you like how the shot? I mean, this is a softball. I'm teeing this up for you just to knock out of the park. Do you love the way that they're using the unique shots to tell this story of Mark and Steven?
Oh, 100%. 110%. If we could go past it, I'm gonna give them extra credit for that shit, bro. I love the uses of the mirrors. Right, your Mark Specter, Stephen Grant is a reflection of each other.
Mm,
Right, Stephen Grant is everything Mark Specter probably doesn't want to be, and Mark Specter is everything Stephen Grant isn't. So when you see the camera zoomed in on the character and they pan out and it's actually zooming out of a mirror or a puddle of water or some reflective surface, bro, it is like the level of ingenuity into that shit is so deep.
yes. And it doesn't feel forced. None of these
Right.
shots feel forced. They blend so well with the tone in the dark. And I think it wasn't a big scene, but one of the things that I love the most, well, 2. One was when he was looking in the dinner plate. I think when he was eating with Harrow and was telling him like not to give up Layla and those types of things. Like just subtle things of where can I see him at, like that particular plate. And it wasn't like, you know how some movies or shows, like they'll plant some sort of prop and it just kind of, it doesn't fit into that
Yeah.
scene. Like that character, I could completely see Harrow having that sort of dinner plate, forks, knives, all those things. Like that was just fitting for that scene, that was fitting for that setting. In
Yep.
the production, the set, the costume designs, like, do you feel like all of those are believable? Do you feel like everything that we've seen out through the first 2 episodes is believable to you?
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of the bogus CGI in the first episode when they were on the hill and that truck. I mean, yes, they probably could have used better CGI, but then that CGI budget takes away from the finale. So I'm not even mad about it. It is what it
Yeah.
is. But I think in terms of props and set design, it just looks sick. You know what I'm saying? In the museum, everything looks dope. We're gonna get into Egypt now. We're moving into the next episodes, moving into
Mhm.
Egypt and
Mhm.
potentially going into those pyramids, the tombs, and all that shit. Yeah, it's gonna go crazy.
Dude, I love everything about the way that stuff looks. And not only that, but I love the way that they're saying everything throughout the entire show so far. Right? We've pretty much seen a movie already. Now, it looks believable, but is everything that they're saying? We talked about Harrow being culty, Steven and Mark, their conversations. Are those conversations and dialogue between characters believable for you in the superhero industry, movie industry?
Yeah. Yeah, especially because it's not outside of the realm of what we could have already learned, right? It's not cosmic. It's not the birth of the celestial essence. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were to take the speech that Erisham gave to the Eternals about the creation of the universe, and you put that at like the highest scale and highest difficulty to understand, I think the dialogue is like at a solid middle point where they are saying a few things about Egyptian gods and certain deities and all that shit, but it's to the point where we can understand it and we might have some possible knowledge of it because we've learned it throughout our history.
Yes. Yep. Relatability. I mean, even that part where Harrow says, like, if you could have stopped Hitler, would you have? He's sitting there with Steven and he's having that conversation. And Steven's kind of on board with him. He's like, oh, yeah, Soup's great. Fantastic. These people don't seem like bad people. And then he's like,
Yeah.
well, we basically would kill babies. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, I think
Yeah.
about killing my boss, but I would never do it. He's like, what are you talking? Like, you people are mad. Like, well, what is going on here? Like, that for me was believable. I'm like, yeah, Harrow's a bad guy, but I'm sure people have thought that way. But then Steven's like, hold up. No, you're insane. Like, I get it now. You're the bad guy.
Yeah. No, that was a good, also partly climactic moment in episode 2 because he's realizing one is Stephen Grant. He doesn't really know everything he's gotten involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur Harrow's trying to take advantage of that because he knows Mark Specter isn't going to listen to a word he has to say.
Yeah.
He's trying to kind of partially manipulate him. But that's where I think his mistake was. He came off too honestly. The minute he said, oh, yeah, we'll even kill, kids because of what they'll do in the future. How about no, you don't kill them. You just fucking perfect them to the point that they won't make that mistake.
Yeah.
We can't say that, at least in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, destiny doesn't exist. They were able to go back in time and fix shit that happened in the past to go on and continue the storyline. Therefore, if you were to plant a seed in somebody who was going to grow up to be a serial killer or a murderer or whatever, why don't you just put that man on the track to becoming everything that you don't want him to become?
Right. And I think that's very relevant to today's day and age. That's very relevant in the world today. If you make a mistake, that's it. You're done. Like, could you imagine that you go to work one day, right? And you're just like, oh, I forgot to take this or give that person this or send this in or do that. And your boss is like, you're not only fired, you're dead. Like, you'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it was a simple mistake and I didn't even know that I did it. And he's like, no. You don't understand. Like, you're done. And then you just like start twitching and bam, you're done. Like, for me,
Bro,
if I saw that,
I'm going to be an unemployment boy for the rest of my life.
Dude, just Nick Fury status all day long. But listen, I think for those of you listening, if you've heard this, I don't know, and I've known this man for a long time. I don't know if you've ever had such a complete review on a show through 2 episodes. I know we say 3, but through 2, I can't think anything else that has been this high level through 2 episodes. So what would you give Moon Knight to this point, like a Rotten Tomatoes score? Like, what percent are you giving out of 100?
Yeah, bro. Like the number on the screen is solid, bro. A 9 out of 10 right now. I mean, if you were to just give me these 2 episodes and call it a day, I think I'd give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Like, it's damn near a perfect episode in my mind. Down to the characters, down to the props, the costumes. Like, this is one of those movies where one thing doesn't carry it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why WandaVision was such a good ass show was because you had the interactions between Wanda, Agatha, Vision, the storyline with Sword, Westview. Like, there's all these moving parts, and they all moved like seamlessly, right? That's the same thing that's going on right now, at least for Moon Knight. And I think if they could keep this up, we get into the finale. You know, everything's might have a little bit of a hiccup, but I would be surprised if this show gets anything under a 9 out of 10 in my books.
I'll agree. I'll agree with that. I don't know. I think they've done such a good job establishing who this character is and keeping it open-ended enough that there's a lot more. You know what I mean? Like in Shang-Chi, for example, just like you said, like we saw his backstory, we saw the 10 rings, he ended up with the 10 rings, and we got some side character development, right? But he went from 0 to 100 in 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, so what do you do here? Like, you can't really get much stronger. You can just get weaker because you lose the rings, and then you're useless to a Thanos 2.0 coming, right? Moon Knight, dude, I'm like, first off, every scene that they've showed the moon, it's been a sliver. So he's not even full power.
Bro,
First.
wait, real quick.
Yeah.
I already got it. This show is going to go
Okay.
crazy. It's going to get a
What?
movie. And I'm telling you the movie title right here. Moon Knight, Blood Moon.
Ooh.
Straight true alpha status. Like, you remember when the Blood Moon happened and the dude was like super raged up? Bro,
Yeah.
I have a feeling Moon Knight's going to go like legitimate berserk mode. Like, the powers of Khonshu are just going to flood his ass. Like, Infinity Gauntlet style, cannot control him. And that's probably where you could get your people like the Midnight Suns to potentially stop him from being the threat that he is.
Interesting. Ooh, okay. Future podcast, right? Moon Knight, Blood Moon. How do they stop him? Who's in the movie? And we can flesh out the Midnight Suns. I like that. That's actually a really good point. That's a very, very good point. Interesting. Ooh, we can go down a rabbit hole with that one. Okay. Let's wrap it up. I got one big question for you left, if you are ready. And it sounds like he's ready. Got it.
Bro, I'm always ready, dog. I'm always ready. This is what I live for. Oh, hold on. Let me go ahead and put my PJs down out of the frame.
Okay, fair. Cameo. We touched on it. We got to flesh it out. Who do you see being a potential cameo over the course of the next 4 episodes?
So I know in the podcast I had said we could possibly get Dane Whitman as the guy in the chair purely because of location, right? England, we're going to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Scrap that. I don't think he could work into the storyline as of what we've seen so far, especially now considering that they're in Egypt, right? Like,
Yeah.
if he would have showed up, he would have showed up right when he had the chance.
Yep.
Now I don't think they're going to make it back to England and then back to Egypt for the finale. So scrap that. However, like we were talking off screen and off camera, I would love to see Blade. As of right now, I don't think he could fit in exactly. But if they can somehow tie in the mystical lure with one of the pharaohs, in the sense that one of the pharaohs created the very first vampire, right? Like, he cursed him.
Interesting.
Let us say, like, I don't even know the name of the pharaohs from the Iliad or whatever, but if a pharaoh somehow punished like his right hand man to be a vampire so that he could be punished technically not even vampire, just punished so that he couldn't be a daywalker. Bro, you're talking about history in the middle of Egypt. That fucking place gets sun for about 22 hours a day, G. You know what I'm saying? Where's a vampire going to go? So if you punish him, if a pharaoh could punish somebody and make his ass a vampire, and then Blade is interconnected to the storyline with that, that to me could be where, you know, the stories converge. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet.
Interesting. You know, same thing I was saying to you off screen. If we did see Blade again, I would want it to be in a scene where he's fighting some sort of like underworld creatures or something like that. Do I think it'll be like a Werewolf by Night kind of thing? Maybe a hint. I almost feel that for Moon Knight, it's going to be kind of an unassociated, you know, like they're going to flip to someone else current timeline and they're doing something. Or personally, I don't know how you feel about this. I think that he should go to New York. I think he should end up in New York. I don't know if that's where Layla was or he has to go track something down or Khonshu sends him there for some reason. And he's like, hey, I got a new mission for you. And he ends up, and that's where we see Punisher or Daredevil. Daredevil in suit. That's what I would like to see.
Shit.
I think it would be whatever Khonshu's next mission is going to be is going to loop in some cameo for a character that like needs to be reintroduced. And I think Punisher is going to be that guy, like the vengeance person.
Damn. Moon Knight versus Punisher?
Maybe.
Ooh.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We have hours left. So we'll be touching up on this again. I mean, we probably won't touch on this for maybe another 2 episodes. So it'll kind of sink in so we can have some more new content to get to you guys on Moon Knight podcast style. But you got anything else before we go?
Somehow make myself a Moon Knight costume for Halloween because it's gonna be game over. But yeah, I think moving forward, because of the backing of Oscar Isaac and the popularity of him and this character as of right now, he could be a good forefront for the mystical side of the MCU moving forward. The same way we had Doctor Strange now has bumped up to like one of the new leaders. I think Moon Knight and Oscar Isaac, Stephen Grant, and Mark Specter could be that character for a different realm of the MCU.
For sure. No, easily see that, and I think they could do it. If they want to make Moon Knight that guy, they can. And I think people are loving it. The reviews, you always are going to have some negative reviews, but for the most part, I think it's been received really positively, which is fantastic to see. And as you called it, best Disney Plus series, baby.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, guys, that is all we have for you today. Appreciate you watching and or listening, and we will check back in. Stay tuned. Mr. Jalapeno, drop the social media for everyone.
You can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Jalapeno 13 or on attack Jala 13, or you want to see the content in its completeness at Jabbering Jalapeno on YouTube.
Perfect. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
We out here.